Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. I have a feeling this is going to be very tiresome in parts this evening. It's normally tiresome, but I think we're going to be especially tiresome today. What should we do? Let's just talk about Deja Vu all over again, first of all. Victor, in the comments, g'day, mate. How are you? Hope you're well. Hope the singing is going well. In the UK, and Phil Hunter, hello Phil, in the UK there has been, and Bruce sent me the link, I didn't bother reporting it in the news because I just went nah, but there's been another aircraft crash. Bruce, explain, unpack, tell us all about it.
Well, it appears, now this sounds most unlikely, but it appears that a microlight type aircraft was flying along and the canopy exploded in a hail of polycarbonate. The pilot was forced to do an emergency landing and in the process damaged his aircraft. But this wasn't in New Zealand, it was in the UK. It was like an exact doppelganger clone of the incident that happened in New Zealand. And I'm wondering if this is the start of a trend, perhaps, where there was no sign of a drone, of course, but there was no sign of a bird either, or no sign of anything. But it's like, you know how a dog ate my homework? Well, is a drone hit my microlight going to be the next big get out of jail free card?
Yeah, it is, and I'm quite disappointed that the AAIB don't seem to have investigated it as well as the New Zealand Civil Aviation Authority did, and they didn't really look at the canopy. They just said, "Yeah, well, wasn't a drone, didn't see the bit, so carbon." Well, they didn't quite say that even. And also, looking at the damage to the aircraft, I'm quite surprised he bothered having a forced landing. Well, I don't know, that's a bit unfair. I wasn't there, but again, another low hours pilot, and as you say, another drone. So that was quite disappointing. Does anyone else want to chip in on that one before we go any further?
So it's the Boeing 787, whatever it is, syndrome of ultralights. Are they going to be all grounded like the Boeing one?
Well, I suppose that's almost fair comment, isn't it? Because it does speak to how are the canopies made and are they up to the job? And do they have a failure mode? You'd think, you'd make a little bit of a stronger bit and then a lighter bit over the top or something. So if you did smack a bird or whatever, have a structural failure behind a point that matters.
I think what should happen is it should be like in Australia where to fly a model aircraft, you've got to have a hard hat. You should have a hard hat on in your microlight just in case the windscreen explodes.
I had forgotten that happened. That was sometime last week as well, wasn't it? These new recommendations or thoughts. What was that, Bruce? Remind me.
Oh, that was in Australia. What is it? A city in Australia. I forget the name of it. But you've got to pay $120 plus $50 if you're not insured to fly your model aircraft in the park, and you must wear a hard hat at all times. Now, this is a public park. This is where anybody can be, presumably. So why is it that only the pilot and his assistants have to have the hard hat? What about the people walking their dogs? This is like crazy stuff.
The motorcycle full face helmet allowed instead of the hard hat? Because I don't have any hard hat, but I have a motorcycle full face helmet. So I don't know if it's allowed.
Are you guys allowed to walk into shops over there with motorcycle helmets on and stuff like that? It's kind of here. It's not a
very, very popular. But if you go in a shop and you are in the course of removing the helmet, nobody tells you anything.
Yeah, I suppose it's where you are over here as well. In Wales, it would be the norm. London, I think it would be a very different kettle of fish at times as well. So it's a weird one. I think we're definitely at the stage where the automatic blame is now drone. It's as simple as that. I think we were probably fourth or fifth down the line. It now seems that unless I can describe exactly what happened, it was a drone. And I think we are literally, other than engine falling out the front of it, number one on the list of blame.
Wouldn't the pilot a couple of years ago would be penalized if they reported that they saw a UFO? Aren't the drones the 21st century UFOs?
I think the problem was UFOs didn't exist or officially don't exist. The problem is someone says it's a drone and everyone goes, oh, right, okay. And the media will run with it and everyone else will run with it. And it's a big problem. And I think we're at the plateau now of it's almost guaranteed, automatic. Don't know what happened, must be a drone.
Yeah, it sounds good. So we have a couple of years ago, also in UK, we had that Aston Martin that 007 used to drive that had the ejection seat. Don't those microlights have automatically ejection windshields? Apparently, that's what they are, right?
Well, some of them have ballistic parachutes and things like that, which you know, there's some argument as to whether that's a good thing or not, because a lot of people apparently are pulling the parachutes and arriving in rather tricky situations where they could have directed the aircraft to the scene of the crash rather than doing that. And as we know, fighter pilots generally pull up and avoid the school before they crash the aircraft and save the day. It's just, that one is deja vu all over again. And perhaps the worst thing about that was, and we're going to come on to it later, is so the microlight incident was the first third of the report, but the remaining 2/3 of the report was all about Gatwick. It was nothing to do with chap lands in field and walks away. It was nothing to do with that at all. So that's that one. Let's park that one. And one thing I want to get on, let's get it on record now. In Vanuatu, the guys from Wingcopter have been doing some great work delivering stuff. And I want to get that out there because they're going to disappear into the noise next week or the week. When is the AEVSI thing? The FAA are going to give an air service license to a drone delivery company. That is going to be Project Wing, Google Wing, and that will be all the news, world first, la 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 la, blah blah blah. And yet there are actually young people with new young companies delivering useful stuff out there now, doing it right now, and they're going to disappear into the noise. And that's my rant on that one over. Did anyone else want to say anything about Vanuatu before I lead us on ever closer to the Gatwick subject?
Vanuatu is the one that were delivering the vaccines, right? Oh,
that's right. 19 villages, 3,500 kilometers of BVLOS flight. I mean, it's all the things, all the numbers, all the stuff that the people want to hear.
I guess that project is doomed not because of drones, but because of the anti-vaccination guys. So
I hadn't thought of that. I hadn't thought of that. You're absolutely right. And then I was watching today about the flat Earth people and thinking, well, yeah, actually, it'd be really good if it was flat because that would solve a whole load of problems, like for radio signals and all sorts of things. I mean, life would be a lot better.
No. Yes, the Earth is flat. Only the radio signals don't have enough power and fall down. So that's why.
Like dolphins.
Is that why? That's why it's better to go to the top of a hill when you want to do long range stuff because the signal will fall down.
Yeah,
of course.
It gets heavier the further it travels.
It's heavier. It's obvious, isn't it? Now you think about it, it's obvious.
It's obvious. You don't know MC squared, so you throw a little.
I don't know his music at all. I've never heard his album. When does his first album come out?
I think it absorbs moisture the further it travels and it gains weight.
Yes,
it gains weight. It's so obvious. It's so obvious. And maybe Bruce can give us some sort of a diagram on that sort of thing because we haven't seen the rendering for a while now, Bruce.
No, I was watching Bruce's tutorial on antennas, and it's absolutely right. That's why the round antennas are better than the pointy ones.
Why?
I don't know. Ask
Completely.
Bruce. He knows all about the cats.
Go on, Bruce, after you.
Well, no, it's all good, mate. Yes, the render farm is actually being upgraded at the moment, so it'll be back online soon.
What's that? The extra ballpoint pens or something, or more?
More colors. More colors.
New drugs.
Oh, shame, man. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to new drugs. We better move on. Let's move on quickly from there.
Straight lines are more like a seismograph readout than anything at the moment.
No. Bruce is looking for the Vanuatu delivery drones.
Well, I just think it's a very positive story that's going to disappear. As other young companies, I've been thinking about that, and I mentioned it last week, but that wing thing where the woman said, "Oh no, it was great, mate, because my grandchildren's sun cream was out of date, so I was able to get them delivered in 8 minutes." What nonsense! What utter nonsense! If that is the reason for your delivery train, when in other places people are saving lives and making a difference, but they won't get the airtime, and that's a personal rant of mine. Now, what was the other thing? The other thing I wanted to mention before we went and got on to Gatwick was in America, Part 107. Not people took their currency exam after 2 years. I think there might be two things there. Thing number A is their businesses didn't work. That's the most obvious reason. Thing number B might be they didn't realize they had to retake their exam. I think a lot of people over there might not have realized that. But the actual numbers of Part 107 operators fall very, very shy of the FAA's estimates. And now I throw it open to the floor as to why you think that might be.
I had a read of that. So they're saying only 7,000 have taken the test after 2 years, basically, compared to the 30-odd thousand that were registered. I suspect they don't know, quite frankly, most of them. If I'm a betting man, I think it's probably gone down. Don't get me wrong. Looking at the industry, it always surprises me how many people are not full-time. I think the industry is majority made up of commercial operators who are part-time, retired, looking for something else to fulfill income. There are very few who are full-time making a proper living at this. Very, very few indeed, actually. But I suspect they just don't know. Quite frankly,
I would say they reached the conclusion that for the profit they make, it doesn't pay them the effort of certifying according to the legislation. It's very common because if you are doing some side jobs once in a while, it doesn't matter. It's not worth the effort of getting the certification again. So I'm sure that only it's common. Only the guys that are really in it for and make a living out of it are going to renew. The others just had the license just because they had to, because they were going to shoot the roof of the neighbor's house and make a quick $20 out of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And also I think that a personal opinion is that a lot of people drank the an app will make you a map Kool-Aid and thought they were going to make a fortune out of it, and have quickly realized that in the survey and inspection business, you actually need to be qualified to do surveys or inspections to make it stand up legally.
Do we know what it costs to redo it? Is there?
It's hardly anything. It's $30 or $40.
So it's not a monetary issue. Okay, it's not reality that then. Okay.
No, you've got to go to the place.
I wonder if it was kind of a status thing too. I'm 107 certified, and after 2 years, well, it doesn't really mean much. No one's bowing at my feet. I'm not going to bother again.
Yeah, I think there's an element of that, and I think there's an element where, as almost what happens in the UK, if you do get qualified, you get restricted in where you can fly. And because you're qualified, you know you're restricted, so then you'll be caught doubly, twice. Whereas a lot of people are just falling by the wayside and perhaps keeping going and just hoping they'll never get caught up with. And they're not. There's no. We've said this a million times. There's no enforcement anywhere in the world, or hardly any enforcement. So if you go to hang on, 2K for certification, 1K for insurance, 2K for the drone. This is Blue Flyer in the comments. Even at $100 per hour, take years of constant jobs, Monday to Friday. There we are. There's an answer. And once Guillaume Gates, once you want to send me on the books.
It's an interesting question, and something I don't know because I don't know a lot about 107. Do they have the same requirements to prove they have insurance to do it? Like in the UK, we have to prove we have insurance every 12 months. Do they have to do that in the US with 107? Because it's a fairly straightforward thing to do, isn't it?
Well, there's no actual flight test. There's no thumbs on controller flight tests, and I'm not sure about that. Perhaps someone from the States, because we have nobody from the States on there. No insurance proof, says Ian Gates.
So how many of them were actually commercial operators in the first place? As Bruce alluded to, I suspect a lot of this was, I'm going to do the test because I can. It's an online test. It's relatively cheap.
It was online for Part 61, so I was a Part 61, Part 107, but our Part 61 ones are not in the test. But I was one of them. I haven't done the test. I don't have to actually. It's basically a driver's license without having to prove you can drive the car. Yeah. I think it's bad news that they dropped that out. Dropped out the flying requirement. Yeah, no, it is bad news. Anyway, right. So that's that. I actually think it's probably quite a good thing that the industry's calming down and fly-by-night stuff's going. If people that really weren't that serious are cracking on, it's just the industry maturing.
I think the only thing on it, you've only got to look at what the manufacturers are doing. Aerial photography is pretty much dead in the sense of landscape. Home and sales, all of that, it's all shifted to inspection. And as you alluded to earlier, you have to be qualified. You need to be known, and they're not just going to call you in to go and have a look at that bridge with a Mavic Air or something like that. I think it's probably going to weed the men from the boys over the next sort of 6 to 12 months.
Not only that, customers also, serious customers also require you to have all the certifications. For instance, if you go to a wind park in US, you even have to have special certifications to be within the wind park that are not even remotely related to drones. For instance, one of the certifications we had to do to go to a wind park was to work at heights certification. We are not going to work at heights, but it was necessary for whoever was going to work at the wind park to have work at heights certification. So you have it. So the things are getting more difficult to operate within big customers. Where this is where the customers where there is volume. So there is money to be made with volume.
Yeah, well, that's certainly where all the big money is made a lot of big money is made in the UK is in the oil and gas industry. And as you correctly say, just to actually be in that dangerous place, you would need all sorts of bits of paper just to be there, and not everyone can have that. And of course, at the end of the day, the number of Part 107 or RPC pilots or Part 101 pilots in Australia, I think, and New Zealand, I think it is, will be going down because those inspection companies that have got an oil rig want to do it with a drone in a box, press the button and send it off. They don't want an operator there at all. They want it all to be completely autonomous.
Yeah. Take it easy. We're not right there yet. It's not. Unfortunately, I know what I'm speaking. We're not there yet.
No, for sure. But I mean, let's take, we started playing this game in SUS News started in 2008. So let's take 11 years back and look 11 years forward. 11 years ago, nobody was flying Mavics and Phantoms and all that sort of thing, and that was all still coming. I don't think it's that much of a leap. It's not as big a leap as when DJI joined the gang, I suppose.
You know that one of our previous guests are the guys that are more are nearer to that purpose of one button press inspection. Are the guys of Skydio. You know that we have them here, so they are the only guys that currently do full autonomous. Okay, they do full autonomous for fun, but the technology is there.
After you, in. I think it was someone else.
I wasn't sure if it was mine. Yeah. I think if you look at all the big companies, all the big industry, where it's at is the software and the processing of data. At the end of the day, a drone is an image collection device. Whilst we've had the beginning of the industry where the skill has been in the front end, the pilot, the guy on the ground, the reality is when you listen to all of the podcasts, all of the messages, is the companies want to take all of that data and deal with it in the background, and the guy on the ground can be anyone. They simply want him to be able to pitch up, throw the aircraft in the air, whether it be a fixed wing, whether it be a drone, and the front end is going to become the lower end of the market, and actually the data and the processing of that data, and actually not even the processing of the data, but the answers. The data is irrelevant. What you want is the information that's contained within it, and only when you've got that is it valuable, because the data in itself isn't valuable unless you can do something with it.
Ian, you know, you came on last week. You came on last week, and you must know that one of the first rules of this hangout is we don't allow common sense. That is forbidden, verboten.
Okay, okay. Then here comes my common sense phrase of the day. Then, with all that data, you process it with AI and blockchain.
Bruce chain, yeah. Bruce chain, yeah. No, but that's exactly where the market is. It has to go logically, isn't it? It's exactly where it has to go. The meatware is the weak link in a lot of situations, and I think we're just often a skip away from that, exactly as Ian describes.
The more we try to value to raise the value of the human during the collection of that, the more it is irrelevant. We are on a situation that we are afraid of our overlord robots taking over, and that's the situation where overlord robots are going to take over. So it's not the self-driving trucks. It's not the self-driving trucks. It's the self-moving drones that are going to take over first.
Go check out Boston Dynamics and ski yourself. You will never sleep again. I was watching some videos the other day of their latest toy or pet, and that was me scared for the rest of the week. You know, funny enough, someone updated a video of BMW's new X7 factory, and it was astonishing how much of that car is now automated as well. And it's just the world we live in. It's all going that way. You know, it really is. But yeah, Boston Dynamics, all they got to do is stick 4 props on it. And yeah, here we go, Skynet.
Well, no, come on. I mean, at the end of the day, the people that want the data just want the data. They don't care how the data arrived, and they don't give a fig about the person, the skilled operator driving the drone. That is absolutely meaningless to them. They want a number and not like the farmer. That's why the ag market's never really going to work particularly well, because the farmer wants a yes or a no answer over there or over there. He ain't got time to faff around and sort out all this data unless he's got incredibly valuable crops that happen over a very small area. The general wide area farm just don't care. We've got some questions in the comments about as a hobbyist in the UK, is it legal to sell photographs and video clips even after screenshots of video clips after the fact? Can we can you in the UK, can you do that?
Yeah, right. Ian will correct me on this if I get this bit wrong, and I should know it. If the intent at the time of the flight was hobby, then if you sell them afterwards, then you are fine. It's about the intent of the flight at the time. So if you intended to take some lovely pictures of a nice castle, and then someone says, "I'll give you 50 quid for that," the CAA were quite happy with that.
Yeah.
And some people abuse that with the idea of doing everything and saying, "Oh, I didn't spend any time," but it's all for sale every week. But yeah. Unfortunately,
lucky 50 pounds. It's quite a good revenue for a nice drone picture of a castle.
Yeah, if I could get 50 quid, I'd be happy for some of the images. Yeah, I can tell you now. You know.
Sorry there, Blue Fly. It was a statement, not a question. So my fault for not reading it correctly. There we are. That's me in reading. Yeah.
Anyway,
but at the end of the day,
ranting because it's been half an hour now.
Yeah, Ian's waiting. He's like this. Come on.
I've been sorting. Are we okay with the video?
Okay.
Can we start ranting again? Oh, hang on. Let's do Ian first.
Yeah.
Are we going? No. Are we going to pump up the Gatwick fiasco again? Please don't. We've been all over that. We've been all over Gatwick. We've been all over Gatwick, and we didn't. Listen, he's going to catch the drone over Gatwick. No, I think Gatwick is a done deal.
It's actually actually not so much Gatwick. It's the fact that the BBC did a panorama. Panorama is like the BBC's flagship documentary series, as it were. So it's deemed as having a lot of journalistic credibility. Although less so when you've seen it.
Sorry to interrupt you, but the preview of the episode, they show that Dayton Phantom going against the wing of the plane. So they lost me off with their journalistic integrity with that clip. So done.
But that's a bit unfair. Sorry, and that's a bit unfair to say to the wider public, Louis. We've all discredited that thing, and we all don't like it. But we are obviously, we are Legion, but we're actually blow all people in the big scheme of things. And Ian, I don't know. Ian won. Where do you want to start? You start running downhill with this one, and let's see what happens.
I'll give just a quick summary of what I did, and then we'll try doing a video clip because you can't share this in Google Hangouts. So we have to do screen share and see if it works or if it's shit. So, but we'll just summarise to begin with. I think the overall conclusion afterwards from everyone that's seen it is because it was so used to the gutter press and dragging drones through the mud and the hysterical language and a whole disregard for any facts, the people came away from it saying, geez, that wasn't so bad. But that's because everybody's standards have been set so low because we're used to the barrage. I think when you consider it's got the BBC name and the Panorama name and that brand around it, even though they didn't do it, it was a production company and it was sold to the BBC, people seeing that as BBC, and it gives it an air of extra credibility whereby it should have been fact-checked better. So the issues were, it featured the study that was done in the US, which DJI themselves contested, because there were quite a few issues around the methodology. I mean, it was presented as though it was an airliner wing when it wasn't. It was a small aircraft wing. Stuff like that. It's not good if you're saying we're doing serious research and taking it very seriously, because you then you're doing that tabloid thing with it, where you're just trying to get a name for yourself by being more hysterical about what you've actually found. So there's that. There's obviously Balpa involved on there, and they've got their photo on again, of which we all know wasn't even a drone. And even if you said, when people try to argue it's drone part, it's not, that these are very old drone parts, it's discontinued donkeys years ago when you're using flame wheel arms. And then obviously they put on a bridge camera, which none of us fly with anyway. So it just wasn't a representative study. And even the CAA, if you read some of the documents, have actually erred towards the FAA's Assure UAS as being better science. So there was that as an issue. It presented both, and it only mentioned that one of them was contested by the manufacturer. In fact, both are. In fact, the whole European drone body has arose issues with the UK study. So there was those issues. With Gatwick, they rewrote the timeline. they said basically that the counter, I mean, this they did acknowledge was the counter UAS didn't pick up a drone, but they said the counter UAS being brought in had obviously scared away the drone pilot, and that's why they didn't have a reading. Well, that's not true, because Sussex Police, and it's on Twitter, you can read it, they're absolutely adamant that their what they called credible witnesses were giving sightings after, a whole day after, 24 hours after, the counter UAS was in place. So the two things cannot be true. You either your counter UAS works, your sightings are right, or your sightings are wrong, and the counter UAS did work. And the chances are, I would say the counter UAS was doing its job especially when obviously are multiple systems in place, and there just wasn't a drone there to detect. I mean, nobody at that stage, even if at the very first day there had been a real drone, with the whole world looking, would have been stupid enough to still be flying a drone with all those photographers.
Come on, you're not being reasonable. We've all seen the counter UAS system working perfectly. The guy was moving the sticks on the radio, and the tethered drone was not moving. So it was working. The counter UAS, it was inside the warehouse, so it was much better with all those anechoic chamber to isolate from every possible radio frequency interference, and it was working. The guy was moving the sticks. I didn't notice if the radio was on or not, but he was moving the sticks on the radio.
Yeah.
Louis, did you notice the radio they were using? It was a Walkera system, which is not even frequency hopping. It is a single frequency, quite narrow band system. So easy to jam those systems.
Yeah.
Why didn't they use had frequency hopping? That was actually characteristic of what would actually be there. And you also notice they used a Faraday shielded anechoic chamber because they can't legally use that tool because it's against the law to broadcast interfering frequencies. So I can't believe there are companies out there ramping up so much startup capital and money being invested in products that they sell for millions of dollars that people can't legally use. I mean, that's kind of crazy stuff. And also on that Dayton University test, you notice the guy at the university said, that the aircraft wouldn't have been brought down by this drone, but if it was a 55-pound drone, then it could have been different, 25 times the energy. And I'm thinking, who the hell's got a 55-pound drone? Even the Phantom they use is at the upper end of the recreational drone kind of spectrum. And then they showed a picture of that weaponized drone they fired in the British tests, where they had to make it into a missile so that it would penetrate the cockpit window. And I'm thinking, there is just so much disinformation here and the public won't pick it up like we will. And so again, I was not totally impressed. It was kind of a patchwork quilt of hype, reality, fabrication, and poor reporting. I wasn't really impressed.
I would compare that to those page 3 Daily. Is it the Daily Mail that with the old sensationalist? I think Panorama has gone the way of the Daily Mail news.
Yeah, I mean
the credit, the effort they did for that piece. Come on, any school kid could do it.
Yeah, they've basically gone down the clickbait route that's so common these days, and it's when it's a state broadcaster, you kind of expect something to be just more time invested. There's so many questions that could have been asked of Gatwick. So obviously there's the counter UAS and sightings afterwards, and explain how you tie up the both being true. And then there's also the fact the first sighting is in rain, and it's like, well, how many drones are actually classified to be able to fly in torrential rain? There's only the Matrice series, and even they aren't truly considered weatherproof. So you might have got away with it, but no one's actually going to put a drone out and risk it, especially in that kind of circumstance where it could have been brought down and then you've got the evidence to hand.
Ian, can you skip paying 1 day of the BBC tax and saying, I won't pay the day that Panorama went to the air because it was rubbish, so I won't pay.
Unfortunately, if you don't pay your TV license, they can stick you in prison. Although you can just go for the fact of not watching live TV and then you can not pay for it. So I think most of us these days are going to just watching Netflix and that. So
you just say, I want to pay the license minus 1 day where that broadcast was made. Because it's not rubbish.
It's not reasonable.
It's I thought it was interesting that, and it's Ords, isn't it? I'm going to get the name wrong. Ords was the
Ords,
system
yeah.
that they were looking at. Now, are we sure what day Ords actually got rolled out there? I think it was the last day, and then everyone put their tents away and went home, didn't they?
It was actually, if you look, Eddie Mitchell, photographer, he was doing live tweets of his photos as he was taking them. He got that in on I think that was on the 20th. So that was towards the end of the day. I can look at the thing later on and double check, but it was towards the end of the day when they put all the counter UAS in. So they relied on Aeroscope. That was in first. Then obviously all the big hardware came in. So that was like Ords, Skyperion, and there might have been a third system. So but that was all in place because all the photographers had all that gear photographed on the morning, and then on that day we still had flights grounded and sightings. So it actually ran after the counter UAS was in place, and that's what hasn't been dealt with. And if you were an investigative journalist, these are the questions they should have been asking the guy at Gatwick and saying, "Explain this. It doesn't quite tie up."
Yeah, so we're trying to dodge around that, weren't they? Saying, well, of course, it'll become a popular brand, and because otherwise we'd have seen it. But I've asked, I want to say Casa, I've forgotten what the UK radio Ofcom. I have FOIA'd Ofcom to ask them what systems are legal for use in the UK at the moment. And I'm pretty sure two things. I won't get an answer. And I'm pretty sure I know the answer already. I'm pretty sure there are 0 systems because they had, as Bruce has mentioned, as we've all seen that chamber where they were test firing it against a thing. They had to go indoors to say that, because to do that outdoors with a live system, there would have been a lot of trouble.
Okay.
I guarantee.
Can I counter you?
Yeah.
If Ofcom has a military system or for use of authorities, that doesn't have to be registered with Ofcom.
No. Well, all right then. All right, let's pretend it's a military system. All right, let's pretend it's a military system not registered with Ofcom. That wasn't a military bloke behind the switch there. Who authorised
an authority, a policeman?
Hang on. But Gatwick air traffic isn't even run by Nats, and nor is Birmingham air traffic. And guess who the next target was? So are we allowing jamming control of our airspace to countries that are not even our own? Surely that can't be.
I mean, what would have happened? I mean, basically, the reality is that, especially then with the embarrassment of it all, is they would have let an illegal use of counter US take place without batting an eyelid. There's absolutely no doubt of it. If they thought the drone was there, they could have downed it. Because at the end of the day, the police are going to prosecute that, and Sussex police aren't going to prosecute anybody for using that in that situation. So they know they can get away with using that. I think it's a worry if it gets.
Can they now? Can they today? What's happened then? All right, so that didn't happen. They didn't see anything. Have they changed the law in order for that to
haven't we
happen?
Haven't we reached a couple of weeks ago to the conclusion that it was only necessary to cry wolf, and everybody would also cry wolf? So that's the situation here. I'm still convinced with the sequence of events and the sale of Gatwick to who was it? The French guys that own a lot of airports. A couple of days afterwards, that I'm still convinced that those events are more related than a drone.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't really see that at a corporate level of intent on the buyout, because all that was dealt with months in advance for the price and so on. But you could definitely see a member of staff, given you were always, when there's a takeover, there's often always redundancies. So there could have been a rumour going around, especially if it's unionised, oh, we're going to lose jobs. Maybe we put a spanner in the works. You know, it could be that kind of thing. But if you were speculating about what the most likely reasons were, you know, that would surely or ought to be higher up the list than, you know, maybe some of the assumptions of it, like it's this poor couple that one's flown a 250, you know, that kind of thing. You know, I don't think if you were looking at the likelihood that maybe it has been given, at least externally, it doesn't look towards that it's been given a thought. Maybe well, it has, but that's the only kind of thing that if you were going the conspiracy theory route, that would be a bit more. Yeah, well, that, you know, sounds like could have happened.
Come on. It's as much conspiracy as the head guy from the Gatwick saying that he is full confident that 100 plus employees of Gatwick know exactly what a drone looks like and are trained to recognize a drone. So, and he has confirmed reports from 100 plus employees of Gatwick. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's frankly, it's utter bollocks. And at the end of the day, his job, if he didn't say that, his job would be on the line. And Gatwick doesn't want to pay out all that compensation. So they're going to stick to this drone story, what may. You know, it's.
Yeah, but what in the news, the current trend of suspicion is that it was an inside job.
Yeah.
Well, and you're at the point though where I've forgotten the point you're at. As I started saying it, Gorilla Drones is saying call in from the security guard, and that might well have been. And someone's allowed to make a mistake, and that's fine. I'm completely down with that. Someone can see a bag float by, say it's a drone. That's fine. Someone else can say it, and a couple of other people can say it. 115 people? I'm not so sure. So what did happen? Did they promulgate it, send it around on the internal email, on internal phone system, and say, look out for drones? And suddenly 115 people saw drones. But now what's happened is it's been charged and prosecuted by Panorama almost, and it's a done deal. I don't think it would be unfair or unreasonable to expect a proper inquiry into this as to what actually happened.
It could do with a public inquiry.
Yeah,
you know, really get to the bottom of it, but they won't want to do it because, I mean, the very fact that ministers got involved and told the police they couldn't say it possibly wasn't a drone. It just comes as though it's, as we said before, it's become political. Can we, just for the sake of your foreign viewers, try to show a bit of video so they understand what we're going on about?
Absolutely, yeah, but and before, can I just remind last 2 pence worth? Hang on, I'm in charge here. Oh no, I'm not. Am I? No, that's a stupid idea. But really, if you think about it, the news you're supposed to be having out in the UK now is one of two things. Brexit was fine and dandy, and we all live in a modern utopia, or Brexit was terrible. Or Brexit was terrible and everything's falling apart. That's what should be in the news cycle in the UK now. They've bought this Panorama program as a little bit of a backup, I think.
Much more important is the news that Chancellor Angela Merkel had the same color of dress that Mrs. May. It's much more important than
that is true. No, but I do think this whole story would have been buried in the Brexit and a bigger news stories if it wasn't for what hasn't happened. But Ian, I'm sorry, I've had my rant. Please try and show us these videos.
Yeah, let's see if we can do it. Let's see if we can screen share. Let's do share. Can you see?
Yes.
Companies question the test's validity, but the researchers stand by them. The UK government has commissioned its own collision tests. In one, a 3.5 kilogram drone penetrated a plane's windscreen. Pilots say an impact like this could be devastating. So should the government have done more to protect our airports from drone attacks?
Okay.
Did you hear that? Okay.
You are going to be taken down, Gary. Now you are going to be taken down.
Always. Fair use, that clip. Fair use.
Blame Ian. Okay. Well, have we discussed Gatwick enough?
No.
I got a board full of stuff on Gatwick. God.
Oh, let's have a look. Let's have a look at this board. Bring on the board.
I think. You know,
Ian's obviously have a penchant for quizzes and data. You both have it. Go on, bring on the
Bring on the board. Let's see the board. Come on.
I've got myself into enough trouble over this subject this week as it is, and I've been, as Ian already knows. I think the program was trying to say is probably an inside job, whilst using it as an opportunity to give the drone industry another kick in the narrative with the BBC, as they always do. I think they glossed over a hell of a lot. I think what was sad was the fact that they ended it with, yeah, it was probably an inside job, but look how dangerous drones are. And
Yes.
that was pretty much how they finished the whole thing off. You know, there's no illusion that they didn't try to put it across that it's an inside job. They made a big point of that, but they also kept sticking the knife in, going, "Yeah, but they're dangerous. They're dangerous. You know. Look what this can do. Look what that can do." You know, you had the FPV guys on there, which were, you know, quite frankly, brilliant, because they just went, what was the score? It didn't happen, and it was just crystal clear. I'm going to gloss over another person that was on there. I'm going to move on past that for many reasons. But I think Ian's statement was quite funny, because it wasn't as bad as I thought. But the more you look back, there was a lot of false data. It was set up to make drones look bad, and it met the overall BBC narrative of demonizing drones. And that's the reality of it. It did what the BBC generally always does, was leave you with a taste in your mouth that these things are dangerous. And that's how it finished, you know, and it's as simple as that.
It did have the comedy that kind of makes the BBC look daft, for the fact that they had included, trying to make drones look scary, had inadvertently included a prank viral video that was put out for Call of Duty, where they used a CGI drone, and obviously they put that in and said it was a real drone. And 5 minutes on Google, not even 5 minutes, the 5 seconds, you'd have been able to see that was a prank video. So, but I thought that was kind of good, because it at the same time as what they were trying to do. Anyone reading about it afterwards on the internet will see that and think, wait a minute, it's not really very good research, and it kind of undermines the rest of it as well, even though we can argue all the other points they've made anyway, for the fact that, as we mentioned, that both studies they'd used were contested anyway. But yeah, Ian summed it up just perfectly, the fact that at the end they had to stick on the drama. And without that, you know, even with the issues there, had they not done that, I think you'd be like, oh, well, you know, fair enough.
Yeah, I think the one thing that was a shame really throughout the whole thing was the BBC I felt they decided the outcome at the beginning. They decided what was the end within the first 5 seconds, and all they did was lead their way there, and that was.
And it was interesting, actually. You're quite right to say that. I mean, the documentary had looked as though it had set out for the conclusion by the fact. I mean, it was on Twitter. Some operators, commercial operators in the UK, were approached and they refused to be on the show, because the show said, you know, we want to do a drones, and and we want to do a bit about drones being weaponized and exploded and that kind of things. And like, no, because, you know, the very fact that there was the drone on there with the gun, and that was a legitimate one, but that's an exception. That was done by one lad years ago. The FBI dealt with it. It's not an everyday thing. And if you had drones that were carrying grenades or guns, the issue isn't drones. It's the fact that bloody people can get hold of guns and grenades. You know, as long as you can't get a hold of those, which you can't, you know, generally, then you haven't got an issue. And so it's missing the root cause. It's a bit like saying, you know, you can do a drive past in a car. It's not the car that's the problem. It's the fact that someone's hanging out with a gun.
Yeah, I think the only thing I think that was good, and the only thing I think I'll take from it is, and Ian will probably back me up on this, was it was great to see the solidarity across all of the commercial operators in the UK, across all of the groups, and even actually the BMFA group. There was a huge amount of positive talk about how much nonsense this was. Very few against the drone, very few against, yes, it was. And I think the only good thing about this is, I think the industry's come together a bit more than it has in the past. And, Ian could probably say more on that than I, but that's the only thing. When you look on the forums, the Facebook groups, it exploded. There were posts coming up absolutely everywhere, but the overall theme was, you know what, we're all in this together.
Guys, I have thought, not the case with BBC, but the rest of the media, they live by advertisement. When was the last time you saw a drone company doing some commercials on traditional media?
Well, you said just on that as well. People often forget, whilst the BBC doesn't have adverts, they do sell to BBC Worldwide, which makes an enormous amount of money. Yeah. So that should never be forgotten. And whilst in the UK there's no advertise, I suspect this will be syndicated across the globe, and that is probably something we should look at as well. Actually,
yeah. Well, the question is, the media lives from advertisements and advertisement revenue, and you don't ever see. I might have missed someone somewhere on traditional media. Drone companies spending money on the advertisement. So
isn't the question there though? How many drone companies are making enough money to be able to advertise on traditional media?
Yeah, at least one.
They don't need to, do they? Because we all do it for them in our videos that we brand. But they're not all of us, but
So, but it's the traditional media that, as well as I do, they live by the advertisement, and the drone companies, none does publicity on traditional media. So what's the best way to have a positive review is not to annoy your advertisers. They are not advertisers for us. Yeah, we can push them to be.
That's true. I mean, the drone industry, even with DJI, it's not big enough to justify spending the kind of money that commercial advertising. You're not going to pay to be on between a football match or the Super Bowl. Even as big as DJI, even if they didn't have the market share they have.
I'm not so sure of that, Ian. You can go and buy a $5 million advertisement on during the Super Bowl. I'm not aware of the DJI financials, but I'm sure that they won't mind spending the $5 million on an advertisement.
Do they need to? They don't need to, though.
They don't need to.
They don't need to. I think even if they had less market share, I think you can just get better value money for that potentially on the internet. And the internet and the kind of their audience is probably more likely to be online, because it's all about, if you're doing it camera drones, you know about video editing, you know about photos, the chances are you're going to be on Facebook groups and so on. So it's probably better spend.
I think the reality is.
So it's a new business.
Sorry.
Go.
I think the problem is, the reality is, drones are sexy right now in all aspects, and it doesn't matter whether it's buying them, flying them, crashing them, or doing harm with them. The store. If you look at Gatwick, it's got everything in it. It appears it might have lies if it was an inside job. It's got wonder. It's got people arrested who are not involved. It's got police. It's got incompetence. The only thing we're missing is sex, and that's the reality. And there's probably that somewhere. We've missed it somewhere. But the reality is, the story sells, and the media, the newspapers, they were bang all day. Every paper was banging out ads on this, stories on this all day, this and that. They probably made more money off that story in that week than any other. And no matter what we say, no matter what we do, it sells, unfortunately. And I don't think there's a lot we can do to prevent that, unfortunately.
As JJFPV in the comments, who apparently was our FPV man on the video, saying that couple looked like doggers. So yes, that perhaps could be. I mean, it was JJFPV that said that, not me, by the way. It's JJ. Now, Bruce, obviously, I was just, rather than that comment, I was going to say that Bruce would probably be working on the sex part, but he's saying Notre Dame, Notre Dame Cathedral, probably caused by a drone. That's not actually what the conspiracy theorists are saying. I'm not going to go down that line, but there is a conspiracy theory about that. So, Bruce, 2 questions. Are you working on the sex element of this? And question number B, why are you being so quiet? You must have some bigger viewpoints on this, or have you given up with it?
No, I'm just interested to hear what other people have got to say, actually. I've voiced most of, or vented my spleen many times in the past on the whole thing. And I think, yeah, the Ians have got it right. It's just an agenda. It's just money. It's bottom line. And because the mainstream media feels so threatened by social media, and they've seen how well social media is doing, they're just jumping on the bandwagon. Social media is all about eyeballs on pages, and the facts become a very secondary component of any story. And so the mainstream media is just following along in the footsteps of social media. And while drones are the hot to trot topic, we will continue to be the target of vilification and demonization. But, you know, in a year or two's time, it'll all have drifted away and there'll be something else. Someone will come up with some new kind of threat to humanity. But in the meantime, we just have to grin and bear it. There's nothing we can really do. And looking at this Panorama documentary, we've taken one take on it. But I fear that the general public will have said, of course, those drone flyers said it wasn't a drone because they're just protecting themselves. They're just, naturally they'll say this. And there must have been a drone because that nice gentleman from the airport said that his good friends that he trusts saw drones, so there were obviously drones. I mean, people basically, almost 50% of the population have a below average IQ, and we have to remember this at all times. People, they're not the brightest knives in the drawer. They just take the bottom line as they want to. And as we said, the BBC started out with an agenda, and they just painted in, there was a sketch that they'd made, and they just painted the colours in through the program to get the final result they wanted. And they did it very well. They were very polished at it.
Yeah, sadly you're right. I thought today I would make a reaction video to the Panorama thing, and I was so angry I couldn't, because I knew I wouldn't be objective. And I think it's time for me anyway to put my 50-year head on and just look past all this nonsense that we're going through, and see the more positive stuff, just like Vanuatu that's coming. And Gorilla Jones says the CEO of Gatwick's body language said it all. Perhaps it did.
He looked like young as well, didn't he? He didn't look. I don't know. I could have got that wrong, but he didn't look. For a CEO of a large airport, didn't look particularly old.
Or do we just look like a bunch of blokes that haven't done as well as you?
That's the point.
But there's a very good point there. It was very stiff. It wasn't looking at. I mean, it could be where they position the camera, but you don't have trust if someone isn't looking directly at you. So he's kind of looking off at an angle, but there was kind of no passion or anything in his language. If that were my airport and I'd done that, I'd be like, look, I realise the inconvenience, all the money lost, those people with all their holidays, but we have to do it for you kind of be. And it was a bit more. It was just almost a bit of well-rehearsed lines. It was like watching a politician. That was the kind of vibe I got off him, and I didn't come away feeling any more reassured from that. I still feel that there has been a level of incompetence that's resulted in this whole situation, and it's got that far that nobody's willing to own up for it, and they're just going to follow this narrative for that reason. And we've wasted, I think last count was over £400,000 of taxpayers' money, with the police having to investigate this with overtime and so on. God knows what the final figure will be. But the question is, when is it going to stop? They've got the reward out there that's so huge. If anybody genuinely had been involved, they'd have been grassed up by now.
Actually, if Jerry Anderson hadn't already died, I'd have been looking for the strings when that CEO was talking.
Sorry, other Ian. But that footage wasn't that footage of the drone? Wasn't that a toy balloon going past?
It was. I don't know. I've seen that thing a few times, and the way it goes. If someone's built an aircraft, they know what they're doing. If they know what they're doing, they're not going to do it. And if they're going to do it, they'd have been in, out, and gone.
And you wouldn't put
No, and they wouldn't have put lights on it. They'd have gone in, out, and gone. That's it. end game.
And I noticed that at one stage they said it was a very fast drone, and then the guy with the commercial drones was saying, you know, about 30 miles an hour. So, but they said it was a big fast drone. I mean, big and fast don't usually go together. Small racing drones that fast, big drones tend to be relatively slow. So there's a lot of conflicting information in these reports, which must severely impinge on their credibility.
And this is the bit they're not glossing over. Whilst they might turn around and say, yeah, you can have miles of link, the reality is if it was a self-built drone, the chances are the radio link is going to be shorter anyway, because then generally not as good. Even, you know, analog, yes, but in a heavily RF congested area like an airport, he'd have had to have been on the boundary. He'd have had to have been there somewhere. Nothing, as we all know, nothing makes sense. There isn't one box you can tick and go, yeah, that's right. It's all nonsense from the bottom up.
Well, it's a chicken and other assorted animals rushing out and telling us the sky's falling in, isn't it? It's just well, day one for anyone that does it. Again, we are the wrong people to debate it, really, because of course we have a vested interest or a jaded viewer or whatever. But it was raining and windy on the first night of the sightings, so straight away. And if it was truly malicious and they truly had a purpose, they would have achieved their purpose, whatever that purpose was. Maybe some purpose was achieved and we're not being told. That's conspiracy theory about even further. But yeah, I thought the CEO guy was very, very wooden. But I suppose that's the way you kind of have to be when you're at the top of something like that. I think it's no coincidence that Birmingham was the next airfield with an incident, and I have reached out to, you'll see my conspiracy theory, I've reached out to my fellow conspiracy theorists today, and that apparently still stands. And the security services were sort of mentioned in the Panorama gig, but not much.
Yeah, there's a comment saying, I think it was pre-programmed, I don't buy that at all, because the whole premise and argument was the drone was being brought back whenever they were reacting. So you can't pre-program a waypoint mission that knows when to come back based on what people on the ground are doing. So yeah, that doesn't buy either, because they had the helicopter up as well, which will have had thermal imaging and so on. They're saying, oh, this clever superhuman drone pilot's managing to evade all our efforts to find him. But yeah, so you couldn't do that pre-programmed.
My final thoughts on it. I think someone saw something. I don't know what it was. Light in the sky, anything. I think it's like saying I've just seen 3 red cars. Suddenly people react and they all see it. And I think the reality is the whole thing snowballed into a mass level of incompetence, and they didn't know what the hell to do. They waited for the alleged drone to go away. When it didn't go away, they didn't know what to do next. It wasn't that it didn't go away. It was just never there, and the reports kept coming in. I just think it, like all these things, like all air crashes, like everything, there's not one factor. I think there was probably 100 things conspired together. But the reality is I don't actually think there was anything there in the first place.
I think you're 100% right, and I hope you're right, and I hope there wasn't anything malicious kicking about, because that is the best outcome. If that's what it was just something that got out of control, then that's also fine, and you're allowed to make mistakes, and that's fine. It just needs to come out in a wash.
I'll also add, I don't think we'll ever know. I think this will be buried from here. This will be buried. Give it 6 months. This will be buried.
Agreed. It'll probably be under the official secrets. And then I think you've got that thing where it comes out after 50 years. So in 50 years' time, it will all come out. But anyone involved will be long dead by then and get away scot-free.
But the good thing, the wonderful result of all this is that now with drone registration and bigger exclusion zones and more controls, this can never happen again.
You're absolutely right. You're so right, Bruce. You're so right.
Don't forget, it was so easy to catch the perpetrator with those new rules, with the RVATs and everything. You just have to look for the guys with RVATs within 3 miles of the airport.
I believe it was
all arrested.
I believe it was the bloke with the hard hats at Notre Dame. But anyway, moving on very, very swiftly. Did anyone else see after that renter ends? Did anyone else see anything else that caught their eyes in the news this week?
I saw that Parrot, the worthy competitor to DJI, cutting out DJI on features and in price. So the Anafi thermal version seems quite capable. The regular Anafi was already a very capable drone. And with the thermal, having the thermal camera and keeping the 21 megapixel sensor is a very good idea. And I believe that DJI will react soon, because I think it's the first time I've seen an DJI being undercut and over spec'd by a competitor. So Parrot did something that no one else has been able to do up until now. Undercut on the price and over deliver on specs. Let's see. Things are getting interesting on the semi-pro level of drones. I don't consider the sensor, the thermal sensor of the Anafi or the Mavic as a pro level sensor, thermal sensor. But it's nice to see some competition under Mr. DJI backend.
Yeah, it's using the same Lepton 160 by 120. It's interesting. It's compatible with FLIR tools, which is, you know, an eye-opener, and it's 2,040 quid in the UK, delivered with 3 batteries. To be honest, I thought if they shoved another 500 quid on it, they'd have still sold tons.
And for me, as they haven't lost the one of the best capabilities that the Anafi has, which is to look up. And that's very important when you're trying to do some kind of more professional kind of work.
Yeah, that's absolutely
like the sun.
Go on, mate.
Not like inspecting the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting, you know, I sat there and went, wow, that price, that package, as you say, they've done very little modification to it. It's going to be interesting to see what everyone else does, because I don't know, you know, as you say, it'll probably cause something, whether it'll be a price drop or whether you'll see something cheaper come through, I don't know. But yeah, I was expecting Parrot to be moving out of that side of it, not into it, and it was a bit of a surprise, because there was no noises of it at all, was there? I didn't know anything about it, and I don't think there was no hints of it.
There's something that didn't make it headlines, but it was announced a couple of days before, which is Parrot announcing that they are going to release the SDK for the Anafi, because they already have SDKs for the other drones, and people are using them and putting out the thermal. And in a few days, also putting out the SDK. It's going to make DJI rethink their strategy, at least at this level of drones.
Well, it's the looking up that they're still not really joining in with, isn't it? I mean, the only other player in the market is the Falcon 8, I think, or will you correct me if I'm wrong? And the Anafi.
How many Anafis can you buy with the cost of a Falcon 8?
Yeah, exactly. So your Falcon 8 cameras.
How many batteries? How many batteries you need on a Falcon 8 to fly the same 25 minutes?
The M200 can look up, but that's with the 210 RTK can, because you can put the up gimbal on the top. But it's a different class. It's an entirely different class.
Yeah, but that's not looking up out of the box, is it? You've got to put no camera on the top.
Yeah, but as you say, there's only a couple of drones in this category that can do it. There's a lot to like about it. There's no other words to use. There's a hell of a lot to like about it, including the price.
I'm thinking of a new product, a 50-cent mirror you can put in front of your camera.
You can tape one of those dental mirrors to the bottom.
And something that it's also a given to Parrot, because they already have the good relationships with Pix4D. And the thing is, the Pix4D already has support for the Parrots. But
But isn't that what it's going to come down to? Or we're moving into the point where you don't just buy the actual flying platform, but you're buying into some sort of post-production or software system as well. And that's going to be as important as the toy that you fly the camera with.
Exactly. And that's where I think that DJI is reliant because, okay, you pick up the DJI Go apps and you can do only so much. If you want to do something else like Pix4D, they now launch their whatever system it is, but at prices that gives most of the lower level pro users at very disappointed because their system might be very good. I don't know. I haven't tested it, but it's also very expensive.
I think the thing on the NF is it's hard to compare it as well. It's not a direct comparison for the Mavic Dual E. They're different animals in the sense it's got no object avoidance and a couple of other things like that. However, the interesting thing with thermal is you've got to ask yourself, do you need all those other bells and whistles? And that's what it's going to come down to. If you're looking for a cheap aircraft that will give you a basic thermal capability, they're ticking a lot of boxes. The M2E has a lot of other features as well. You've got the accessories that can go on the top, the object avoidance, so you are getting more for your money. But it's down to what the right tool for the job at the end of the day. And as I said, that price point is going to tick a lot of boxes. It's going to be interesting to see what other people do.
Ian, can you tell me that?
I'll just jump in. You say things, and who pops up in the comments? But I'm not sure where you're working these days, John. You might still be with Parrot and SenseFly. I'm not sure. But John's in the comments. Perhaps comment on overall user experience and reliability and operations of Parrot versus the DJI and how that affects competitiveness. You haven't sent me one. I don't know.
No, I can tell you that my experience with the Anafi has been extremely positive. It's a very well rounded up package. Even the base model, the base optical only camera, very good image quality, and it's a very good surprise what Parrot has done on that drone. They need perhaps to strengthen up their commercial distribution channels and perhaps some part of their online supports, and they're there. Technically, it's probably the best position competitor to DJI.
One issue, I saw someone post a photo from one today and it looked very fisheye, like a GoPro. Is that the norm?
No.
No, not the comments I've seen.
No. The regular Anafi, I can show you a photo of I have here with you. It has two modes of the camera when you stretch out the picture and one that it takes the picture with the regular proportions.
Yeah, because it's using digital zoom, isn't it? You know, it's got the 21 megapixel sensor, so it's using digital zoom when you go down in the recording. Again, it's like with all of these things, you can't compare them apples for apples. You've got to pick and choose the bit you need, really. And I think at the end of the day, if you're buying a drone for thermal, that's the bit you're going to be concentrating on more than anything. So yeah, it's an interesting product. I don't know when is it out? Is it available now? I didn't actually see that bit.
I believe it's next month. I read somewhere availability starting in May.
This UK police force is already testing it because one of them tweeted. That was the first I realised it was out because there was actually a police force saying, "Look, we've got one, but we're using it." So they must have maybe trialled it with a few forces. I mean, that's probably the market Parrot are after now, is going, because that's one thing we are seeing that's not been there in the past is many of the police forces, because of the cost of helicopters, really are putting money into drones. I think it was South Yorkshire Force, it's certainly one of them, where they're using the proceeds of crime, so from criminals, drug dealers and so on, the money they get for that, they're putting back into buying drones for officers to deal with some of the antisocial behaviour. Oh, just one thing, Ian, can you do us a favour? Can you just move your mic up and down like you were doing when you were having a drink earlier?
All right, sorry.
No, just do it. Just move it down. Oh, you're not doing it. When you It sounded like you were farting, and it was.
Well,
Yeah, that's right.
sorry.
It's the smallest things that amuse blokes in sheds with ornamental gardens. They're the funny sorts. They're
Oh,
funny
we're going on to LEDs.
Yeah, there we are. Yes, get on to the gardening, shall we? So, John, maybe you can tell us in the comments if it is out now. I think it probably is. I know we ran the presser on it, and it did cause a lot of interest. It's one of those press releases that there was a little surge of interest in it, so it showed that people are looking at him. You know what it is, yeah. So people are looking. So on to the next. Did anyone else see anything else that caught their eye this week?
I saw that VTOL, that video, just to keep in thing from last week. I think you watched it as well, didn't you? And it was nice to see that. I was watching a video on a VTOL they were testing. I can't remember whose it was. I think you commented on it as well, didn't you?
Did I?
Yeah, I'm sure you did. I can't remember. It was a VTOL. It was a VTOL. I spotted. What else have I written down?
Oh, the Bixler, that's been.
Yeah, it might have been that one. Yeah, that one looks like my one. Yeah, it was about. I think that was about it really this week. That's all I've seen.
See, John saying. Go on, mate.
I think Kez has rolled out some more clarifications to the regulations for commercial operators over there, and it's actually given them quite a bit of parity with manned aviation when operating in controlled airspace with having a browse. Pretty dry, but it's good to see the way things are heading, certainly for commercial operators. But on the same token, the video I put up about the rule changes in Australia have produced a lot of feedback, and I think they're going to have a lot of trouble with compliance. There's this vast number of people have said, I'm not paying $20, I'm not registering my models or my drones, they can get stuffed. So it's going to be very interesting in a year's time when CASA starts adding up the numbers and finds themselves woefully short of the figures they thought they were going to get.
Yeah, I know. It's all going political madness, isn't it? And I think we've got to, just quickly back to Gatwick, we've got to, George, just make a little note on the calendar, and then let's look at the number of the increase in drone sightings in the next month. I bet we get a spike again, and we must all remember that's what it's all about.
One thing that's worth considering as well with Gatwick, have you noticed that since they have had the counter UAS in, so that's what now, how many months we're on now? We'll be like 4 months in and no drones reported. So it's like, if it was such a problem, wouldn't they have been saying, oh, well, we're getting one picked up on it, every other week?
I know that when the guys from Altitude Angel did the gig up at Manchester and they had aeroscope there, I know they detected loads of stuff that was flying around.
They were looking at that. They were looking out for like the full 4 miles or something, when then it was down to 1 mile. So I don't think the law changed then, had it?
No, they just had it. No, what I mean is they were just, when they did the Manchester thing, they were just looking. They just had it on and they were looking just for the thing. And stacks of stuff popped up apparently on that.
What was amazing though was, if that wasn't within a mile, that stacked stuff was perfectly fine then.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Yes. Okay. But I mean, but what I was trying to say was, in day-to-day operations around an airfield, you should see and hear a lot of stuff anyway.
Yes. Okay.
If it's but well, it didn't happen, did it? Didn't happen. Anyway, let's draw a line under that and draw a line under this evening's escapades. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I was hoping a chap called John Woodford was going to come on. Woodfield was going to come on. It came a little bit late. He's got a fantastic channel. I think I've linked it below. It's all about RC gliders. When all this madness cracks off, I just like watching his channel and watch the wonderful gliders that he creates.
Gary, can you get someone from the BBC Panorama team perhaps to come on and tell us how they organise this documentary and what the particulars were, and we can perhaps interrogate them as to their techniques and whether they got the real picture across? That'd be great. I'm sure they'd love the promotion.
It's funny how people just flock to come on here when we ask questions like that, having done whatever they've done. Well, we might be able to get someone from the ITV team to come on board because they've contacted me and they are making their own program. So they might come on.
We could get them sorted before they make the program.
Yes.
Ian, one question. Was this the first outsourced panorama? Because this was a third party. Do you know if this was is this the first time they've done this, or were they just saying this is an outside production?
I don't know. The only reason that I was aware of that was because they went big on it on Twitter and so on. They were going, "Oh, look at us! We've managed to sell this." So it just might be they're more social media savvy that they put it out there. So I genuinely don't know. But it does go back to a question Gary asked earlier though about was the international syndication. They specifically put on there they were looking for international partners to sell this to, and I think they were suggesting they would tack on an extra half an hour or so of drone antics.
Bonus features.
You know where they were pulled that from. They were pulled that from Bruce's channel. All of it. All 29.5 minutes.
It'll be XJet.
It'll be XJet, absolutely. It'll all be about let's build our own cruise missile. It'll all be about. Yeah.
What action fee, Gary? If the JJ that's on the chat that says he's one of the Yorkshire lads that was on there, you should get him on the next show.
Absolutely, you're very, very welcome, JJ. We were going to try and find you. You must come and tell us all about how that happened. If you're still listening, JJ, we'll reach out to you. And
big shout out on those guys for saying it how it was, because it was just straight to it, on the nail, no in between, and simple as that.
Simples, absolutely simples. Yeah, no,
it was interesting because they did bring those guys in, but they sort of brought them in to show how quick these drones are and how high and how fast they can fly. And it was almost as if to say, look what these things can really do. And we'll never say so we can use their footage. I didn't think they were given the credibility they should have been, because we all know that when you're flying inside a building, you're not really a threat to the national airspace.
The one thing there that was unfair was they had done the thing of have the commercial pilots on and them was talking scarily about it, and then the hobbyists on with the reality of what we all think. Now, really, it should have been fairer done of having a commercial operator say the same, because if you look across all the group, that was the one thing that struck me about Gatwick. Commercial operators are all saying, some of the ones that have been most vocal on like Twitter, that commercial operators saying this doesn't add up, and I don't believe the narrative. And it would have come across better had a commercial operator also been involved in that, because I think there was that of these are hobbyists, so it could have. I don't know. I mean, to me, it doesn't undervalue it, because I know they've got as much voice as anybody else, but to the general public, it might have come across differently. I don't know.
Yeah, where do I go with this? I think it was never going to be a win for any commercial operator to go on there. True. Okay, I will say this. I think regardless of what you say and how you come across, I think half of us would have said you shouldn't have done it. The other half of us will said you should have said something better. However, I do think that at times we have a habit of being more self-interested than we do help in the industry, and that's probably my politically safe way of going with it. But I'll also say I think it would have been difficult for anyone as well. And
guys, don't forget that anything you say will be heavily edited before it goes to the air.
Yeah, that's the point. If you were positive, those bits would often be cut anyway. If you're on a live show, this is where it probably annoys me the most, is when you're on the BBC Live, for example, and you have operators, or they're on the radio.
With or without the 10-second delay?
No, there isn't that. I mean, I've been on their live myself, and they brought me on about it was the UK drone consultation thing, and I was straight in there. And I know fair play to them. I was allowed to say my piece and had that. They did then bring on somebody an hour later to contradict me, like, unfairly, even though I was right. But in fairness, I did get my say. So I would like, where it's live, I don't think you have an excuse. But I think where it is recorded, it is fair point that it doesn't matter really what you say. They're going to edit it however they want to present it.
Yeah, I think we all know why the commercial operator that went on there. I think it was a no-brainer for them in some aspects. However, it's one of those situations where you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And I think most did run a mile when they were asked. And I think unless you do it the right way, I think you're just going to come for criticism, and that's the problem with it.
Yeah, JJ just had mentioned in the comments actually saying that the BBC production or the production company on behalf of the BBC were very straight with her.
Yeah. All right, with that, look, we definitely have ranted on about Gatwick. I think this is the last time. It is the last time, isn't it? Will be the last time. Should be the last. Well, no, until we have TV one.
I think given how much Louis liked it, we should have a section every week on Gatwick.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely.
Gatwick ops manuals updates and VTOL. They should be your three stable guarantees.
And the current market value of Bruce Chain, of course. Or that then. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We better draw a line under this. Thanks very much, dear viewers, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for following along. Hopefully, we'll see you again at 2100 GMT next week. Have a lovely rest of the week. Be safe, whatever you're doing. Gentlemen, thank you very much. See you all again. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hopefully without getting.
Bye.